What is a teacher? I decided to consult Merriam-Webster's online dictionary for the definition of what is a teacher, and this is what I found. A teacher is one that teaches, especially one whose occupation is to entrust. This definition might be good in layman's terms, but it is simply not acceptable to me. I wanted to test Webster and see what he had to say about doctors, and I found a much eloquent definition. Doctor, a person who is skilled in the science of medicine, a person who is trained and licensed to treat sick and injured people. I was quite upset, since I too am skilled and licensed to treat people. So I decided to redefine teacher, but in my own terms, and this is what I believe the word teacher to mean. What is a teaching philosophy? According to our notes, it is a well thought out theory of education that is important, for it helps to explain our orientation to teaching and allows us to defend our position with respect to how we manage learning. In short, a theory of education enables teachers to explain what they are doing. It provides academic accountability. I chose this quote because a teaching philosophy really does enable teachers to reflect on why we became teachers versus where do we fall as teachers today. I think that many teachers would agree that in our philosophies, we ultimately want to help our students. The teacher that I strive to be. The teacher that I strive to be is progressive at heart. In reading the characteristics of a progressive teacher, I feel that I strive to fall into this philosophical category. A great quote that describes the ultimate goal of a progressivist would be straight from the guru, William Kilpatrick. Learning has taken place when any part or phase of experience, once it has been lived, stays on with oneself to affect pertinently our future experiences. We learn what we live, and in the degree that we live it. To me, what he's saying is that progressivism is hands-on. It is also stated in our notes that we learn how to learn. Instead of education instigated by the teacher, education is initiated by the student. In the classroom, the teacher acts as a guide. He is never obtrusive, always very democratic, and ever respecting the natural rights of all. He employs a philosophical approach to the organization of subject matter, remembering that the task of providing motivation is more important than the dispensing of information. In analyzing these two quotes, I feel that I do respect my students, and try hard to differentiate instruction so as to guide individuals to excel in what they need to learn. I feel that I encompass most of what these two quotes are saying into my classroom pedagogy, and that I try to connect the lessons to my students' backgrounds. I try to have less of me talking and more student voices in their opinions. I incorporate a good amount of new teaching strategies, for example, thinking maps. I try to keep up to speed with new technology, and I group students into student-centered learning activities that are hands-on, kinesthetic in nature. I am also an essentialist, functionalist to a certain degree. So I believe that progressivism does have to have aspects of essentialism embedded within it to be successful. I feel that I would be setting up my students for failure if I did not adhere to some principles of essentialist teaching. A definition of essentialism would be that from our lecture notes. Gutek states, essentialism asserts that certain basic ideas, skills, and bodies of knowledge are essential to human culture and civilization. The role of the teacher is also described in William Bagley in his case for essentialism. Bagley states, the teacher is being responsible for a systematic program of studies and activities to develop the recognized essentials. Another way of looking at essentialism would be to call it functionalism. In our textbook of Desmarais and Lecomte, they state that functionalism is the act of transmission. In the traditional functionalist view of social transmission, each elder generation passes on to each succeeding generation the rules, customs, and appropriate behaviors for operating in the society. So, who defines what essentials or appropriate behaviors are? That would be mainstream society. Having high school students, I know that I carry on a big responsibility of being a captain in a classroom ship that cannot sink. I have to model the hidden curriculum as to how to behave in certain circumstances. I do have to implement rules set up by society that students have to follow. Otherwise, the consequences are detrimental to them when they're thrown into the real world. In terms of teaching content, before I let my students venture into discovery-based learning, I do not want to see chickens running around with their heads cut off because they do not know what to do. I do have to go over the information that is at hand. For example, before giving students projects, I usually do a PowerPoint lesson with video clips on notes that they have to have in order to succeed in getting their project done. During the notes, we interact as a class and I ask students to draw from their past experiences in connecting to the content. In this example of my classroom structure, you can see that I do have some progressive tendencies, but the standard notes date back to essentialist-like pedagogy. I do not think that this is necessarily bad, because students do need to have some sort of foundation. Even though I hate direct instruction, I do try to make it as interactive as possible. I try to sway away from Ben Stein's role when he played a science teacher in the Wonder Years. So what is the magic formula for teaching? I do not think that there will ever be a prescribed way of teaching that works best for all students. I think that it is for this reason that the world of teaching is so dynamic, multifaceted, and constantly changing. Granted, we do have standardized testing, which sometimes limits the role of the teacher and their autonomy, but behind closed doors, the classroom world is the teacher's oyster. I will continue to strive to be the best teacher that I can be, in trying hard to cater to the different learners that enter my classroom doors. I will also respect the fact that the caregivers of these students have entrusted me with the responsibility to instill knowledge onto their children. My goal is to always learn from my experiences in teaching and try to be better. I want to apply new, cutting-edge teaching methods to my lesson plans. I want to never stop learning for the sake of my students. And it is for this reason why I recently enrolled in school to get my master's in curriculum and instruction. Lastly, I do not want to look back and regret that I could have tried better. I also want my students to look back and remember me as a kind-hearted teacher that did not let them fail. I want to walk down the empty halls of my high school with my head held up high like Edward James Olmos in the ending of Stand and Deliver.